So someone just said to me today that they're not a competitive person. And that I'm always surprised when someone says that in regular everyday life. I'm not a competitive person. In my mind, that tells me one of two things about them. It tells me that like somehow competition has been like soured or ruined for them, or that something traumatic happened in the course of competition or loss that wasn't even something they could make a constructive end out of. And then the second possibility, the second option, is that they really are competitive and they just kind of don't realize it. So option one, the being soured on it, it's simpler, but it's a lot harder to fix. So like everybody knows the cliches, right? The real winners persevere, they overcome, and they use their failures as fuel for like future victory. But so like some people are so afraid to lose that they'll completely abandon anything that even like resembles competition. So when someone's lacking that fire, that fundamental drive to stand up, brush themselves off, try again, it's just sad. Like it might not even be their fault, but like it's something like only they can fix. I don't really know the external fix for that. That's sort of like a thing that has to be self-repair. So, but the second option, like they are competitive but they don't realize it, I think that's way more common. I think like competition, like it seems like really easy to define, right? But it's more nebulous, it's more esoteric than I think a lot of us might believe. So for a lot of our lives, like we have a playground mentality, I guess is the best way to put it. There's a playground mentality that's attached to competition. So like we're raised believing that competition is something that's defined externally. So like victory is in defeating other people. Like there's nothing inherently wrong with that definition. Like that's a driving force for successful individuals and groups, and like even entire countries and cultures are based on that. But a lot of us, like especially people that have played sports or involved in organized sports in some way, you can kind of take that desire to defeat the other and to win. You can sharpen that into a pretty effective psychological weapon. Like, and with coaching, with experience, with education, like you can really harness that. You can direct that really, really well. But most of us, like we don't play sports at a high level. So we kind of develop a more introspective view of competition, like after we leave the playground. Not everybody has that desire to compete in sports, to compete, like inherently want to compete against others, I guess. For a lot of people, there's no opponent. There's no opponent that they need to defeat, that they use to motivate them. The only person they have left to compete with on a daily basis is themselves. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. I mean, that's who's there every day, right? But the people who learn to harness that desire to beat themselves, to best the previous version of themselves or the current version of themselves, or like the desire to constantly improve, like those can be some of the most dangerous, effective, and driven people on earth. So a lot of times, though, that's going to be the same people that say, I'm not a competitive person. Because they're not, it's not true. Because they have that playground frame of reference about what competition is, that I'm going against somebody else. I mean, what they should say is, I don't want to compete with you. I think that's really what it means, is that there's an internal strife and competition constantly. But it just doesn't have anything to do with anybody else. The idea of being a better person than they were the day before, like that's the only kind of motivation a lot of people need. So, okay, now if you look at kind of the first option, the second option, or like, both of those ideas, not even the first option. If you just look at the idea of somebody that can have an opponent that they want to overcome, but also have that drive to improve the self. So what if somebody's able to do both of those things? What if they can focus like that desire to defeat your limitations, to increase your capability, to become more capable, as well as combine that with the will to defeat an opponent and work that into the training and preparation. I think that's where greatness lies. And these are people, these a lot of times become the rare individuals that can lead, that can inspire. And these are the kind of people that we watch on TV. These are the people, we have their posters on our walls. We cheer for these people. We're fans of these people. People walk around with the jerseys with the person's name on them. It should be in some way, I think, the goal of everyone to become like those kind of people, the people you're inspired by, in some way. You're not going to have all the tools. You might not have, the physical abilities or the psychological edge, or you might not have that inherent competitive drive like a Michael Jordan type of compete at all times mentality. Maybe you don't have that. But I think the big takeaway there for me has always been to never shy away from competition. Never turn away from the opportunity to compete with yourself and your peers and to play games and to figure out who's better at that moment and how can I get better next time to beat the person that I'm competing with, or how do I get myself better, because it's all intertwined. I kind of made it sound like it was two separate threads of type of competition, but really the truth is, even in everyday people, not even great athletes, it's intertwined, because in order to beat to beat somebody, to best somebody at something, if you lose before, then you're going to have to figure out how to get better. And you can use that kind of natural, instinctual drive to win. You can use that to improve your game, whatever your game is. And if you do that, you may just in your everyday life, you might motivate someone. Someone might see you. Your children, your family, your friends, your spouse, your significant other, they may see you. And maybe they're one of those people that's soured on competition. Maybe there's one of those people that's just so afraid to lose that they never really got in the game. So maybe not shying away from competition, being an example of just going for it and wanting to compete against others and yourself. Maybe you can help those people on the sidelines, so to speak. Maybe you can help them understand that it's okay to get beaten. It's okay to get beaten. But what's unacceptable is not getting better.